Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to Ice Cold, a podcast about AMC's The Terror. This year we're talking AMC The Terror Infamy Season 2, and we're specifically talking about Episode 4, The Weak Are Meat. My name's Bubba, and with me, as always, is somebody who loves jumping in a mud hole. It's Mork. Mork, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Bubba. Thanks for asking. And I really love this episode. I can't wait to chat all about it. Is Catfish here with us too?
Let's find out. Catfish, are you here?
Do you hear me walking stiltedly? If you see me walking in a strange way, please stop me from whatever I'm about to do.
No, we're just going to run away. We're just going to just hit running.
Very excited to talk about the by far best episode of Season 2 of The Terror so far.
Man, I think we're all in agreement. Let's see how our rankings go. And you know what? I'm going to start us off because I have been the most positive, I believe, of the three of us on the show, and I'm going to give this episode 4, The Weak Are Meat. I'm going to give it, and this feels pretty high, but I'm going to give it 9 double T's out of 10.
Double T's?
Well, double T's are what the doctor gave to himself at the end of the episode, a tummy tuck. 9 tummy tucks out of 10. Man, this episode was noticeably better on every front. If I'm not necessarily scared, it's when Yuko removed her mask, I was like, oh, blank. And I still have some problems with it that kind of tie to the show as a whole, but I definitely think it was the best. So 9 out of 10 from me. Let's go to you, Mork. Mork, what is your ranking out of 10?
Oh, man. Well, I hate to agree with anything that you ever say, Bubba. You know that.
Oh, no.
I'm going to give it 9 double E's.
Ooh, double E, huh?
Yeah, 9 expiring Enriques. I thought that, and I don't know if it's just because the further away Chester is from everyone, the better the show is. I don't know if that's the case, but it was great. I enjoyed all the everything felt like a subplot, but it all felt like it was working together, so I really enjoyed it. There was a couple in it I'm going to pick, but my moments of holy bejesus, what's that? Far outweighed my, annoying nitpicking. Catfish, you're up.
Well, I agree mostly with you guys that there are a couple things that make absolutely no sense, and one of them continues to be Chester's attitude, which I believe would have got him killed in 2009. Forget 1942. But there was creepiness all over. It felt like the previous episode, we only got 2 or maybe 3 creepy moments. A lot of creepy moments here. That's exactly what I want. I was still a little confused about what the ghosty ghost wants, but overall, I'm going to give it 9.01, what I like to call double G's.
Double G's?
Yeah, Guadalcanal ghosts.
Oh.
My rating, there were so many choices. I was going to give it 9.01 double N's.
Double N?
Yeah, Nestler nosedives. But in the end, the change of location and having 2 separate locations, amping up the creepiness really helped this a lot.
Listeners, those are our opinions. We want to know what you think. Join us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/PHQ, on social media at Twitter and Instagram at PHQ. Any way you talk to us, it's the only reason why we're doing these podcasts, other than we like listening to ourselves talk. Guys, we got some great feedback this week.
Bubba, I want to redo my ranking. Instead of 9 double E's, I want to give the episode 9 double M's.
Double M's?
Maury messages.
Ooh, so Mork, why don't you go ahead and read this first bit of feedback we got?
Oh, this is the coolest thing ever. Basically, I think the podcast is going to end as soon as I'm done reading this note from Naoko Mori, who plays Asako in The Terror Infamy, Chester's long-suffering mother. And way too young to be Chester's mother and way too beautiful to be Henry's wife. But, hi guys, this is Naoko Mori. I am loving your podcast reviews. Not only are you all so bright and intelligent, you guys are hilarious. And that's the end of the podcast. Good night, everybody.
I love it. And just to pitch to be her favorite podcaster, I think it's Naoko.
Naoko?
Yeah, Naoko.
Well, I'm very embarrassed. And
you could be wrong. You could be right, and I could be wrong. Let's just have one of us say it right.
All right, so I'll give it the third option.
Oh,
yes.
No, let me say that this is the kindest note. Thank you so much. We've had actors on shows we've reviewed, write us and like our tweets or things like that. But this was so nice of her to say. And even at times we've been very tough on this show, I hope she appreciates that we're just giving our opinion and we want to love it and give us episodes like this and we love it. We don't talk enough about the acting, but she's been doing a great job. So thank you so much.
She's fantastic. I think a lot of the reasons why we're so tough on Chester is because we just don't think that he's worthy to be her son. I mean, she's by far the most interesting and charismatic person on the entire show. So we want more screen time for Asako. Am I right, guys?
I'm not going to criticize her acting. I'm going to criticize her character's mothering skills because Chester should have had his mouth washed out a few times. Maybe he wouldn't be so sassy.
See, I think she knows she's got a couple of secrets hidden up her sleeve. So I'm looking forward to her laying it down in the weeks to come.
Thank you so much for that bit of feedback. If anybody else listening is an actor on the show, please write us, even if it's the actor who plays Chester. We take everything with a grain of salt. Guys, we have some more great feedback, so let's go through it quick. Catfish, do you want to read this next bit of feedback we got on Twitter?
Oh, I don't know whether I should leave it for you, but I will read it so that my voice won't tremble. It's from Shakes of Thrones at Shakes of Thrones, all caught up with E3 in the podcast. So far, I give this season 8.5 double E's.
Double E's?
Extraordinary expectations. Season 2 has so much to live up to. Season 1 being a perfect 10 in my book and my favorite limited series ever. And even though it isn't perfect, Season 2 is still engaging and haunting me in a similar but different way. Just the way you're haunting her, Bubba. Then the Franklin expedition story. I agree with Mort that the Bakemono isn't inherently terrifying.
Say no more.
Like a supernatural mutant polar bear, but I enjoy the more subtle, disquieting sense of horror that she brings. I also agree with Bubba that the show is beautifully shot. What is she going to say anything about Catfish?
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, still fascinated. This is why you made me read this, to shame me. Anyway, still fascinated by the storytelling angle and thinking about how a vengeful murderous spirit from another culture complements a dark and unsettling era of our nation's history. Hashtag historical fiction. See what she did there?
Beautiful.
She says, will it all, there seem to be some writing awkwardness in hitting the smaller plot beats and maybe even some of the less than award-winning acting performances, but whoops, that's my hashtag ice take.
Everybody, we love this feedback. We love all the feedback. At Shakes of Thrones on Twitter, you might be able to figure out that, yes, she is a Twitter account that focuses on Shakespeare parallels with Game of Thrones. Really fun to follow. Smart person. We love the feedback. Let me read this next bit from our Facebook page, and it's from our wonderful, true double L loyal listener, Peter Connolly in Australia. Peter writes, do you think the writers of The Terror Season 2, Infamy, read George Takei's graphic novel, They Call Us Enemy? Any thoughts, Mork? I have no idea, to be honest.
I'm going to say yeah. I do. I really do. He is listed not to be a credit cheat, but he is listed as a consultant. And
good.
Maybe that's because of the graphic novel. Maybe it's also George Takei, when he was a very young boy, actually lived in an internment camp. And so he knows what the world that they are portraying. So yeah, so one way or another, I'm pretty sure they have.
Now, Mork, why don't you go ahead and read this next bit of feedback from Twitter from L. Quint.
L. Quint. Well, I'm not as into this season as the last. Obviously an important story to tell, especially now that we are doing camps again in 2019. So terrible. But I don't find myself invested in Chester Luz yet. My fave is Amy, whose mom is forcing her to work as a secretary. More Amy. Ice cold. My better call Saul is that Yuko adds some classic double B.
Double B?
Bakemono broth into Luz's tum-tum, and that baby comes out as a little Toon Bakemono spirit.
Yes.
Great call, El Quint. That Chester can command against the U.S. guards. Y'all are the chimes in the background, some sort of Easter egg? Bubba, that's a question for you.
That is a question for you.
Got them correctly, win a prize? Yes, that is true, El Quint. Come on, you can tell me. It's your friend, Nick the Dark.
Aww. Now, I think El Quint is also Quentin Gregg on Facebook. Catfish, what incredible feedback did we get from Quentin Gregg on our Facebook page?
I'm going to add my own little geek out moment here. He said, check it out, y'all. The actress who plays Amy found and liked my tweet. Haha, I'm a new double F.
Double F?
Yeah, fanatic fan. Very exciting. So my geeky moment was last week I was auditioning for that medical show that's been on for 25 years that I've never been on. No, the one after ER, an unbroken chain of 50 years. And I saw Marcus Toji, who showed up on last night's episode for the first time as his buddy, as Chester's buddy, Arthur Ogawa. And Marcus Toji was in an Amazon series called The Patriot, in which he was an amazing... I told him it was hard for me to even watch the show because, spoiler alert, it happens quite early. Somebody pushes him in front of a truck so that they can get the job. And it's kind of played for laughs, but also sad throughout. He was amazing. So I don't usually go up to people, especially when they're about to audition. But I was like, my God, you're awesome in that show. I really enjoy watching you. So a lot of connections this week for the Ice Cold podcast and the Terror Season 2.
Listeners, if you want to join on the feedback train, once again, join us at facebook.com/PHQ, Twitter and Instagram at PHQ. Guys, let's get to it. I'll give you guys the 2 tracks, and we can talk about one first. Do you want to go to the Guadalcanal in August of 1942, or do you want to go back to that terrible prison which had Americans in a camp in World War II? Where do you want to start?
I feel like let's start with the new area. This is all completely new to us. Let's have our dessert, and then we'll go back and have our vegetables.
Well, one thing that has happened is that Chester, he enlisted in the Army. He probably went to Minnesota to learn this code breaking and stuff and help translate.
And ice fish.
Now he's out in the Pacific. It's August of 1942, and he's got a new buddy, Arthur, and yet something has followed him, which I like to call Double B.
Double B.
Bakemono blows. There is so much wind everywhere Chester goes, and it's all ominous. You know, when he looks at the forecast, it's like, what's the forecast for today? Sunny skies, highs in the 70s, ominous winds.
I had a couple of questions, and this is a small quibble. All of them together add up to just one deduction from a perfect 10. Mm-hmm. But I thought it might be interesting to see some basic training hijinks. You know, like if there's, I was hoping to see any drill sergeant and Chester could have been pretty fantastic. So I was a little bummed that we didn't get to see any of that. But why is he writing Luz? He should be writing his mother. That is the only person that he needs to pay attention to anymore. Only his mother. I don't even know why he's wasting his time with Luz anymore.
Catfish, do you want to answer this, or should I?
It's your turn to slap him down.
Okay. So let me say, number one, Mork is entirely correct. He should be writing his mother. Now, to people who think, wait a minute, he should be writing to his love, the mother of his children, to which I say, yeah, you think that, but Christina Rodlow, the actress who portrays Luz, hasn't tweeted us, hasn't written about our podcast. So forget her. Only write to your mom, Chester. That's what I say.
That is a good point. So he's out there with his camera again. This seems ill-advised to go out in the darkness and wind the double W.
Double W?
Yeah, the whistling wind. And do a lot of flashes. And so his boy Arthur Ogawa sets him straight on a couple of things. First of all, don't do that. That's dumb. Second of all, let me tell you more about the Yurei that has a crazed hunger for something which depends on its onen. So this is all new information for us.
Yeah. I think he needed to show up before. I really liked having him around. I think that he is a good. I'm gonna go for it. I think he is the Han Solo character who's gonna undercut some of this stuff, give Chester a dose of reality, good or bad, in slightly sardonic fashion. So I think he needed to appear in earlier episodes. I hope he sticks around for a long time. And you know who else agrees with me. I did some research at the World War II library down the street. I found this letter, and it reads, "Dear Ogawa, you are already my favorite son. Sincerely, Henry Nakayama."
Oh,
So,
how could he? Right? That's an ice cold cutscene.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, I want to give Arthur a shout out for my first nominee for Ice Cold Diss of the Week.
Yes.
So Chester's been out there. He's taking photographs, trying to see if he can catch the Pokemono, catch the Yurei again in his images. And so suddenly Arthur looks at the images and he goes, "Boy, I thought you were supposed to be good." Ice cold. Ice cold.
oh, Arthur.
And so let me just read it verbatim exactly what Arthur teaches Chester and us, the audience members, about the Yuri, who I believe also might be another name for Yuko. He says the Yuri is a crazed hunger for something. Maybe somebody wronged it in the Yuri's lifetime. Yuri spends the rest of eternity trying to satisfy its own end. Uh-oh. I don't know if it's going to spend all of eternity, but it's definitely going to spend the rest of the episodes in season 2 after its own end. And is its own end the death of our hero Chester? What do you guys think about the Yuri's motivation if it's been wronged? And how did Chester wrong it? I know I'm throwing out a lot of questions.
Well, that is what that is what I brought up last week, trying to figure out why Chester wronged it. And I've always said that I this would have been more visceral enjoyment for me is if the Yurei, if the Tun Bakemono had been going after the bad guys in this situation, which is all the soldiers treating them horribly.
Well, we get there, but it definitely takes some time. And I think
we get there, but it's like it's more like an appetizer, right? It's like it's almost like a mistake. Oh, whoops!
Right. Yeah. It takes a little bit of time to get there. But I think the question, and to your question, Bubba, I mean, it can't be Chester, right? If it because what we see later on. I mean, this is not a recent Yurei conversion. I mean, this is an evil spirit that's been looking for vengeance for a while. So
but I think that what Arthur says was it attaches itself to a person because the person did something wrong. So I still think we're looking for something that Chester did wrong. Obviously, with his smart mouth, that's probably is what has to do with it. He doesn't know. We're going to get a flashback at one point that he was just an asshole to somebody on the street. That's why. Oh,
I mean, I'll be really disappointed if that's the case. I'm hoping it has something to do with maybe someone from, maybe if it's not Asako, it's from her side of the family, or from, and I forget the name of George Takei's character, but he's an older guy. I hope it goes back much, much further than just, because Chester's, 22 in this thing?
He's about that age. Mork, while you guys were talking, I was wondering, is there any chance Henry did something? And it's seeking vengeance against Henry's family, because it doesn't just attack Chester. Chester left, and yet it's also doing terrible things to Luz and that side of the family. So perhaps I believe we'll find it out.
If Henry did anything to Asako, then I'm fully on the Yurei side.
Yeah, nobody messes with Asako.
That's right. That is right.
Chester and Arthur are brought by Colonel Stallings out to what I call the mud pit, but it's just horrific. And these Japanese soldiers have been shot in the head, thrown in this sinkhole, this mud hole. We meet Mathis. He's a a-hole soldier. And it turns out they're looking for one of their men. A Sergeant Crittenden is missing. And they wanted these interpreters, Arthur and Chester, to kind of help them figure out where Crittenden is. This is one of my big deductions in this episode. I always talk about how Chester is too modern. He comes across as too modern. Chester, who knows what his rank is? I have to be honest, I don't remember. But he talks back to these guys, and he's like, well, maybe if you hadn't shot him in the head, if you...
Right.
It's patently unbelievable, and that's what I said at the beginning. Like, forget 1942. Forget that he's Japanese. Like, you just can't, you can't smart mouth people like that in the military. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's the problem with it.
Yes.
Especially the dudes who are out there, and as bigoted as some of these guys may have been, Chester's sitting at a typewriter, with Arthur playing grab ass most of the day. And these guys are out there getting shot and all that. So it felt very
well, and it's also their first kind of introduction to these guys.
Right.
We see that they've kind of been keeping them away just to kind of keep the peace. So somebody shows up and immediately starts telling you that you're not doing everything right and that you're a jerk and yelling at you. I find it hard to believe. I mean,
yeah, I don't think Chester listened to Asako growing up. I really don't. And,
well, again, that's the mother. She should have washed his mouth out with soap.
She tried. They only had so much soap. Henry doesn't make that much money. He's a fisherman. They can only afford so much soap.
I'm a simple fisherman. I have one bar of soap. I love my country. All right, so guys, I just want to go a bit further on this. And that I'm trying to think, why do they have Chester like this? So, yes, shooting and executing prisoners is absolutely terrible, and it's wrong. To have Chester kind of confront them, is that their way to make us think, okay, Chester's a good guy? But I think back to season 1, and there's a chance that these two teams aren't really created. But Crozier in season 1, who was, Jared Harris's character, he has problems with the commands from James Franklin, Kieran Hines' character in season 1, and yet he never so blunt, or if he is, you understand it because he's drunk and then he gets punished for it. Hickey, who's the villain in season 1, he's a very low status military rank, and so if he's going to say anything, it has to be careful, and if he's not careful, he's going to be punished like a boy. Chester is saying, he's standing up for the right things, but I think it would be more dramatic. I think we'd be more on Chester's side if we saw he almost had to bite his tongue at these horrific war crimes that he's seeing. And so moments like that, they just really took me out of it. I love this episode, but that was a demerit for me.
I think that's a great point. And yeah, no, I mean, it's a great point. And also, I mean, the way that I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of CSI, but I don't know if, okay, so we've got 4 semi-decomposed, well, they weren't really decomposed, but we've got 4 or 5 corpses, and they're in a giant pit of mud and probably other things.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And he just kind of does a little pat down as if he knows exactly where to find the clue like that.
Yeah, that was quick.
That felt a little quick, maybe, it's not just because Chester's previous misdeeds, but he had spent several hours in that. I mean, it seemed like it was a latrine. I mean, it was disgusting.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
But yeah, I mean, it was. But oh, by the way, yeah, here's the clue. That felt a little.
I mean, it'd be one thing if they were if it was something that was a little bit more challenging, or if you hadn't found it right away. So it's I mean, I think the part of the point of that scene is, see, Chester's a smart guy, and he's just not being appreciated for it, or whatever, to show us that aspect of him. But it was just so Sherlock Holmesian that it was just hard to stomach.
Yeah.
So Chester's detective work causes the general or sergeant to send all the other men down into the mud, search the rest of them for belts and things that might have writing on them, which means, of course, they're going to hate Chester even more.
Good.
Chester has not been sleeping. He's writing his girl. He's writing his love Luz. He sends her a flower, but he's not sleeping well. And so because of that, he finally breaks through and has a nightmare of Yuko. And then when he seemingly wakes up from the nightmare, he's still in a waking dream where we hear there are 2 devils in the tent.
Yes.
And he daydreams of being stabbed through the back. And the blade comes out. Oh.
For a second, I was ready to give this my first ever 11 rating for any episode.
So Chester's detective work helps the troops find Crittenden. And Crittenden, I don't know how long he was a prisoner, but he must have been doing Babelfish, because he's picked up Japanese very quickly. And he's saying, "The weak are meat, the strong eat." Arthur, who I want to like this actor that you talked about, Catfish, and I'm sure the actor's fine, but Arthur said the dumbest line I've ever heard. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's just repeating back what his captor said to him. Oh, how? You're saying that Crittenden, while he was a prisoner, he learned Japanese? Come on.
Well, but that's the other thing that's unbelievable to me, is that if I look at it from those guys, from the other officer's point of view, this guy just came back. He's raving out of his mind, and this jerkhole just starts yelling at him. And by jerkhole, obviously, I mean Chester.
Right, yeah.
Because his middle name is Jerkhole.
Oh, I thought you were referring to the place where all those dead prisoners had been dumped.
That's Chester's home. He loves the muck. That one, too, it's like, I understand you want to bring some tension in, but if it's just too unbelievable, I can't buy it as tension. The guy comes back, he's clearly incapacitated, and Chester's going to yell at him, and no one's going to go, hey, bro, this is the guy this is my buddy Crittenden that I've been fighting with for months and months, and like he's my best friend now. So
yeah, they're all acting. Yeah.
So please don't yell at him. He's been through some shit.
Well, not only do they allow Chester to just kind of browbeat him, they later say, Crittenden, why don't you get your revenge? And so Mathis and the evil bastards, they let Crittenden out. They just start wailing on Chester. And once again, this is horrific. Chester was standing up for what's right. You don't kill prisoners, but because he does it so kind of bluntly, he's getting his butt kicked in. Who saves him? But Crittenden comes and roasts everybody. And Chester somehow survives, miraculously survives.
Well, it's the old line about Chekhov's flamethrower.
I mean, he was at the bottom of the pile, which makes sense. He had some like shields, but yes, fire can get around. This wasn't as unbelievable to me because the other dudes were the target. But what I found fascinating here was we learned some information. This is not what we thought it was, right? This is Admiral Takahashi, I think was the name that Crittenden mentioned.
This is another small quibble for me because it feels like that's a character that they've mentioned. I think they mentioned it before in episode 3 that they were trying to figure out where Takahashi was. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It's not the first time we've heard this. So this is somebody that is super important to locating and capturing or killing or whatever to the war effort. And Chester is in this situation where he's at the scene of a crime where, I don't know, 5 or 6 of his fellow soldiers were all just murdered. And they're in Guadalcanal. They're out. They're not at a big army base or anything. They're out in the sticks. They don't have a lot of manpower. I mean, that's a huge deal. But we got Takahashi's location out of it, so it's okay. So I mean, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit because we don't really know what happened, but it just feels like that was if there was something good that was going to come out of it. Personally, I'd like to see Chester suffer a little bit more before we got there.
Well, Chester, in all this letter writing he and Luz did to each other, the end of this episode, Chester still hasn't heard the tragic news about his child and possibly Yuko's child and Luz's child. Who's to say whose children? But yeah, Chester keeps having it bad. Let's be honest. We're tough on him, but he gets it bad. I don't know about
you guys. I hope that the twins haven't been listening to the podcast and hearing this badmouth Chester this whole time. And then they just decided to end it before it ever began because they didn't want to be raised by such a jerk.
Poor Enrique, R.I.P.
Enrique and Enrique. I don't know about you guys. I'm watching this on. I have AMC, but when we record our podcast, we try to do it a little earlier. So I watch online, and sometimes I'm able to do that. And a lot of the ads that I'm getting, a lot of the interstitial ads are report suspicious activities, which are a little. I mean, they're it's terrible that they need to happen, but it's also it's sadly fitting. So.
Are you saying that they're doing stuff where they're sort of accentuating the show, or is this a real modern times report suspicious activities?
I believe, yeah, and yeah. I don't know if we want to go off on a whole tangent, but yes, it's modern times. Yeah.
Oh, great! Well, it's nice that people aren't absorbing the message.
Guys, anything else you want to say about the South Pacific before we head back to Oregon?
Well, one thing I noticed was, actually, let's head back to Oregon. Let's head back to Oregon. That's totally cool. Let's head back to Oregon. Sorry.
Alrighty, so we're going.
Yeah.
Let's go back there, and so we start at the camp with Luz being proud of Chester and yet conflicted. She's proud Chester's going out and trying to get this money, but she's like, I offered to come to this camp for you, and you leave? She's kind of torn about how she feels about Chester. She obviously still loves him, but it's very tough for her.
Well, the other thing that's happening for her at this point, and this was obviously a big deal in this episode, was that she's not feeling entirely welcomed, especially by Chester's dad.
No, Henry at the beginning of the episode was not welcoming at all. And she's at a table, and you see her get handed a pair of chopsticks, and you realize she is still not comfortable with them, even all these months at the camp. And so she is having it rough. She goes to see Yuko, and Yuko pulls out some baby tools.
M.
The double M.
Yeah, monstrous midwife.
Yes, oh my Lord, yes. What did you guys think of these tools Yuko was showing her? Oh, here's the forceps clamps, and here's this.
And she's like, that's to get the baby out. I'm like, oh my God. Now, I mean, it's going to come up later on, though, but let's sort of set the table for it now. Because she said that it was like our baby, her baby. Do you think that she was planning like there was going to be like an evil baby that was her baby and the other baby, or what? Because I was a little confused about the end, what she really wanted out of it, although she seemed sad that the children died. So what do you think her end game was with the babies?
Catfish, I initially took it that the way I believe you're implying, meaning that Luz and Chester had a baby, but somehow through magic she was able to get her own baby in there. And so there was going to be like one baby that was Chester and Luz's and a second baby that was Yuko's. And then when neither survived, it was a bit like, oh no. And so when the labor was happening, and this is jumping ahead a whole bunch, I thought that Enrique would pass, but then, quote unquote, Yuko's baby live, but they would both die. Whew. What did you think?
Well, we're jumping a little bit ahead. I mean, I was just sort of thinking about that initial scene where Luz and really the best character in the whole show, Asako, are in the garden, and Luz has the letters, and then Henry comes by. I managed to actually get the DVD commentary for this track, and as when Luz shows the picture of Chester to Henry, what his character's motivation, and this is the wonderful actor who portrays Henry, he's as he looks at it, what he's thinking is, I wish they sent me a picture of Ogawa. So it's something to look forward to, guys, on the DVD commentary. I really do recommend it. So the gardening moment, but I don't want to skip ahead, because before
there's a lot of stuff we're skipping.
There's a big moment before the midwife, and there's a couple of things that we see. And Bubba, do you want to take us through those?
Well, I feel like we have to talk about Nestler because Catfish brought him up. So there is this soldier. He's theoretically on patrol through the camp, making sure nobody's out past curfew, and he sees a light on in that far barracks. Yeah. And he walks in, and he sees a double B,
bald
Bakemono, Yuko, and she is creepy as hell. Oh my God, yuck!
Well, okay, I gotta be honest. She's not that bad. Like the hair, it looks like she's got a bad haircut and a sunburn, but like she's got a very lovely face.
Oh, so, she is a beautiful actress, but oh boy, she did not look good.
Yeah, it was a little scary. And also, I don't know about you guys, but this is a really important lesson that I've learned, is that when you're going to kill yourself, you don't want to get dehydrated along the way. So you want to bring something to drink, just in case, so you don't get dehydrated. I found that to be so strange. I mean, and they're going to use it later on, but I just felt there was other ways to get C. Thomas Howell upset at everyone, and but just the body, he's holding this bottle of contraband sake. I mean, the scene was great. I mean, so this for me is a really good microcosm of the episode, because the scene was great, and I love that now. Yuko can we're seeing Yuko just throw herself, see the crackly bones, and then the aftermath of it, and just the insanity of a bunch of people watching a dude climb up to the top of the tower and leap off. Well, it was gripping, it was compelling, it was creepy, it was terrific. But then I'm wondering, there's these questions that I'm wondering about, like why is he doing that? And it didn't feel quite right. But one question, I don't know. Let me ask you boys, what was her motivation? So now we know. So in the very first scene of the show we're seeing, and I forget her name. Is it Mrs. Furia, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we know because of the way that she had that stilted shuffle to the seaboard, and then she takes her own life. In my mind, it has nothing to do with what she did for in terms of the abortion smoothie for Chester and Luz. So why was it that Yuko wanted her dead, do you think? Or does it not matter?
Well, I think it does matter, and I think that's one thing that's just not clear to me, and I wish would be clear. Why did this happen? We get little sprinkles of people telling us that there's a reason for it, that it's not just random, that somebody did something wrong and caused the spirit to appear. But so far, unless we think that someone's going to, that's being saved for a big reveal, we're not going to get it.
Right. And so I don't know. I don't want to get completely sidetracked, but, we start the show with her, and then we have, and I don't remember all the names, I'm sorry, but, in episode 2, our old buddy who he gets taken over, and then he pulls a gun and he's saying, Chester, run, and then he gets shot. So I'm a little confused by, that stuff it's just too murky for me. I don't know what they're going to turn it into, if anything, but.
Well, okay, Mork, this I'm only coming up with because you're mentioning, well, what could it be? So let's say Yuko, her goal, or the Bakemono, the Yurei's goal, was to have a kid. And so you kill Furuya's wife because she's creating an abortion smoothie, which would get rid of your chance to have a kid. And so she's killing the soldier who goes back near the barrack because he might discover she's being a midwife. She kills the doctor. Maybe that's her goal, and somehow we're not seeing how everything else is tied to it.
Right, but that wind didn't arrive until the funeral.
True.
So you could be totally right. For me, it just feels like it was outside of, the one thing that I think we can all agree on, the only being that is more nurturing and sweet to their offspring, more than Asako, of course, is the Bakemono. So I totally I see that as a real motivation, but it's just not really tracking for me yet. So.
One thing that is a bad sign, which I have to be honest, I didn't know that this had any bad connotations, but there's another ice-cold moment of the week, and that's when it's our lovely Asako finds out that the twins are coming. Twins are bad luck. They bring death and misfortune.
Ice-cold. But
ice-cold grandma.
Before that ice-cold moment, there was one I wanted to pitch to you.
Let's hear it.
When they were going to put, I think it was Henry in the stockade, and Yoshida says, no, I'm the one who made it. And C. Thomas Howell gives them that's one just as good as another.
Ice cold. What an evil ice cold. That's a terrible thing to say.
Cold.
So I just want to before we go on, there was a lot of ice cold moments happening when we find out, when Chester's family and other close friends find out that Luz is having twins.
Yeah.
But if it's a big deal to them, why wasn't that a big deal to Yuko?
Yuko needs a monologue. How about this? Chester writes his letter, Dear Luz. Luz writes, Dear Chester, I miss you so much. What if Yuko wrote, Hi, Mom. Still in Oregon. This kid hasn't come yet. I'm trying to accomplish A, B, and C. Remember my important point. Here's a flower and a finger from Nestler.
From Nestler.
Well, hopefully we'll find out. Let me say it's creepy no matter what. At times, especially in this episode, they were able to create that mood that you want from this show. Guys, let's just get to a sweet moment, which maybe didn't play entirely sweet, but Luz is trying to get her would-be father-in-law to love her. She tries to write and read this letter in Japanese to bond with Henry. Henry speaks English fine, but the fact that she's trying to speak Japanese, I think that's a great moment. And maybe it's a false bit of hope before the pregnancy's coming up. How do you guys feel about Henry? Because I'm still torn about him. And I was certainly on Team Henry after the first episode, but since he's been tortured and who knows what, he hasn't been the man that we all liked, or at least I liked in the first episode. So, Catfish, what have you thought about Henry?
Well, I like Henry. I thought he was kind of, I feel like I can't have it both ways, right? I can't say that Chester is a complete jerk that I'd be embarrassed to be related to, and then give Henry a hard time for having a bad attitude about life. Chester's his damn son, so he's got to put up with his shenanigans all the time. But I've grown to love Henry more and more. I mean, I've completely justified. He's still shaken and seems to be slowly coming out of the damage that he suffered. Ice fishing. I mean, God knows Mork hasn't been in Minnesota in years and years, and he's still dealing with that emotional trauma.
As are you guys.
Yeah, yes. Well, because we have to put up with it. Yeah, absolutely.
That was my sympathy trauma.
Yeah, sympathy trauma. I thought that was great. I love that scene. I love that scene because I feel like they might realize as they get to know each other, like, this whole situation is better without Chester.
I think they have figured that out, but I'll largely agree with you, Catfish, but I actually think that Henry, I mean, she comes in and loses Japanese. It's just a disaster. I mean, why does she even bother? But, she tries. I'm kidding. But Henry's response is, I mean, he responds to her, and he does. She's reaching out to him, and he reaches out right back. So I don't think that he's this, closed off. He's as closed off as
right. I think he's slowly coming out of it, but he's still.
I think that's a big moment. I think it's a big moment for him to basically be like, yeah, it's a great name, and yeah. I mean, I think, he's not tap dancing underneath the sentry lights like he was in the dream sequence, but. That's a big moment. It's a big moment of acceptance for him, and I think he was all there, and and I think mainly it's like, okay, well, look, Chester was obviously a disaster, but we can start over with these kids and see if we can do better. So maybe he has something to look forward to.
All right, so do you guys want to talk at all about the birthing scene? This sounds crazy, but I kept looking at this and saying, you can't give Luz any pain medication. You can't give her anything. She must be in more pain than you could possibly imagine.
Well, they might not have anything. They probably didn't give them enough supplies.
Oh, and so
both. That was rough. I mean, that was a great scene because it's one of these things where this is what I want to see more of, right? Where we've got so many, at this point, they've given us so many wacky ideas of what might happen. And, what ended up happening was horrible, but it wasn't terrifying. But I don't know about you guys, but I was having trouble. I had a lot of anxiety during the sequence. I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, I thought it was great. But then I thought, interesting, did either of you think, well, what does this mean for her?
For Luz, yeah. What, does she have to stay in the camp anymore?
I'm sure she could get out if she wanted to. In fact, I'd be surprised if they told her to stay. Why would they tell her to get out? So, I mean, I wonder if that will be a thing. I mean, she's not Japanese. She doesn't have any.
I think they're going to start charging her rent now, and then she can't make her rent, and they
exactly. Exactly. Take your flour sack dress and get out.
Yeah.
Luz is in the delirium following this tragedy. The whole family's there. Amy's there. All the friends are there. And everybody seems to know that misfortune follows Chester. It's almost like not a secret anymore. It's something they discuss in the open. Luz is, like I said, possibly delirious. And she's saying, someone needs to find Yuko. Someone needs to find Yuko. And then our girl, Asako, goes looking for her, and I thought to myself, oh no, this could be really bad. Luckily, she doesn't find anything. Why? Because Yuko's got on her chubby cheek mask and is going doctor shopping. Oh my God, what an awesome end to the episode when this mask, which was a creepy enough mask as it was.
Oh yeah.
But when that mask came off, oh my God, it was like, holy, blank. You know, I was cursing at the screen. Oh hell.
Yeah. I just want to back up for just 1 second because, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it, look, I mean, I've never said anything wrong, and I never will say anything wrong about Asako, but didn't she tell Luz about the midwife?
Yeah, she is the one who said she heard one. Yeah,
so this is the thing with her where people talk about her. Yeah, so then, you know where I'm going with this, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, they can't pretend that she's not there when they told her. They told her about Yuko, the midwife,
or even saying, or to say, who are you talking about? Where is this person?
Yeah.
Right, because just a couple episodes, maybe even the very last episode, Asuko mentioned to Luz about this midwife. Now, it was very important that Luz said Asako didn't have to go. She's like, I'll go see the midwife myself. And so it's possible that Asako was meaning somebody else.
Well, the other strange thing is, I mean, Luz was...
They went to the right cabin.
Luz was upset when she was in pre-labor, but I can't imagine, because she was so dedicated and because they were so concerned about the other doctor, that she wouldn't have said, no, take me to the camp. There's enough time to take me to my midwife. So that just kind of got glossed over too a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Listeners, tell us what you think. Tell us what you believe this Yuri, this Bakemono, this Tunbakemono wants. Once again, join us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/PHQ. Tweet us on social media @PHQ and Instagram @PHQ. Guys, anything else before we get to our nominees for Ice Cold of the Week? Because this was a killer ending. Literally. I loved it.
It was awesome. It's just, I mean... Like I said, I mean, you know, when you see a lot of, I love that they're sort of going the Japanese horror route where it's more creepy instead of jump scares. I mean, some of the later Japanese horror movies have been more jump scares, someone crawling on the window and necks cricking and stuff like that. But the creepiness, I mean, this is it's beautiful. I just need as much as I had in this episode, and so I thought it's great, I'm interested to see what shape it is taking in Guadalcanal. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that it's sort of opened up to something maybe a little bit larger is also cool to me.
Yeah, and you know, what's in the cave, and are these Tunbakemonos related? Are they rival Tunbakemonos? I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool things that could happen. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, that last scene it's just one of those things where, compared to a lot of the violence that we've seen in the show, just that when the doctor, when he gives himself, the double T, the tummy tuck.
Oh yeah.
I could barely watch that. I was afraid of, how terrible that was going to be. So that for me is like such a good sign that, like, yeah, this show, when it's working, it really does work, and it just made me super excited for the rest of the season. But there's only 5 episodes, right? So it all wraps up next week. Is that right, guys?
No, we've got a few more weeks to go.
I was misinformed.
Let's get to our ice cold moments of the week. We've told you some of ours. Listeners, we always encourage you to tweet us your ice cold moments, to go to Facebook and tell us your favorite ice cold moments of it. I'm going to throw one last ice cold moment out that we didn't talk about, and that was from our new character, Arthur, there in the South Pacific. He's having to educate Chester about so many things, but then anytime you point out Chester isn't the brightest, it's the best. Arthur, with his classic line, these things aren't real, right? Oh, ice cold diss of Chester. Woo!
It's so good. Chester needs to get it.
All right, so any other nominees? Anybody want to say what their anyone want to claim which one was the best ice cold of the week?
The best one was during the during the news about the double T's.
Double D?
Terrible Twins.
Oh, right, Terrible Twins.
And it was one of the neighbors, and I don't remember the character's name, but she's, where they're talking about, oh God, twins are such bad luck, and one of Asako's friends, she's like, oh yeah, I had hoped he had taken it all with him. The bad luck.
Ice cold.
So
Chester has a rep.
Oh, he totally does.
My God. I you know what? I do think though we have been giving a lot of these ice cold moments to it feels like how LeBron James is either the MVP of the finals or the person who plays against LeBron James is the MVP of the finals. Anytime someone can get a good dig in on Chester, I wholeheartedly approve. So I co-sign Bubba's Arthur Ogawa slam of Chester.
All right, that'll be our ice cold moment of the week. Once again, listeners, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. We want you on this journey as we possibly cover all of World War II. We're going to have to find out. For everyone here at Double P Media, my name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And I am Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter.
And Mork is at Extraordinary. That is extraordinary with a W in front of the final R.
And you'll hear us next time on
Ice
Oh.
And
It's cold outside.
I love sleeping in a tent, digging through a mud pit, finding Crittenden and twins.
Oh, my God. No. Oh, no. I can't believe you did it. You did it. That's amazing.
That's amazing.